fight going now, and Terry Ryan again. Yep.
Oh, and he's rapid fire with the right hand, driving away. My goodness. He has Barnaby going, and just about gone.
And we've got Barnaby with Ian Moran. Barnaby known for being able to throw him. Ian Moran, not a fighter by trade, but hanging right in there with Barnaby.
I'm going down swinging. Examples of life, the bastard cemetery revenue. There's something I can do. I'm going down swinging to be back home with you.
And welcome to the first episode of Murphy's Hockey Law. I'm your host, Jimmy Murphy, alongside former NHLers Terry Ryan and Ian Moran. Terry, how you doing, buddy?
Not bad at all, Jimmy. Thanks for having me today. Good to be with you guys.
Yeah, and Ian, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, we're really excited. We're excited to be on the CLNS Media Network. Murphy's Hockey Law will be the name of the show here, and I'm psyched to be working with you guys as well. And I think for this episode, guys, obviously it's a slow time in the NHL right now. Things will be ramping up in a couple of weeks, but I think for this episode, maybe we kind of take a time to introduce ourselves here to the listeners. I'm sure they're obviously familiar with you. But, still give a little background here. You guys were just talking offline about how you got your starts there. I thought it was great stuff, so maybe we can just put it on air here. And I guess, TR, we'll start with you. If you want to give the listeners a little info on how you started in the junior ranks and on up.
Sure, sounds good. And cut me off at many points because I ramble. But but I don't know where to start, Jimmy. But let's say I was just explaining to Ian, we got a lot of mutual friends, I guess, and teammates that we've had. I was 14 years old. I left Newfoundland to go to BC to play junior. Tri-City Americans had scouted me. I believe I'm the only Newfoundlander ever to do so. There's one guy, Darryl Williams, and he still lives here. He played one game for Victoria. Outside of that, I think I'm the only guy. So, and you had to be 14 out then to be drafted. It had to be 14. I guess it was as young as 14. Now in the Quebec League over here, everybody has to go to the Quebec League if you're from Atlantic Canada. And the draft is when you're 15, turning 16 at the very youngest. Back then was a different set of rules, and I could kind of go wherever. I just had to live there. So my father took me to Quesnel, BC. I played my 2 bantam years. I played junior, and it's probably the craziest time of my career. That even though it was starting, to play bantam, to play junior as a first-year bantam, having never thrown a hit, and that was the peak of those 90s blood-filled junior rinks up in northern Canada. It was a lot of fun. I had 222 hits my first year. It was madness. And I remember after 2 years of that, not that I didn't like Quesnel, I definitely learned a lot from the guys. They supported me, and I still talk to people from there. So it's a rough town. But I ended up going to the Tri-City in the Western League, and we were in a division with Seattle, who had like Brendan Witt. If I was just to go through all
Brendan
the guys
Witt.
From Wade Belak. Brendan Witt back then, when I started, Michael Sikora was a really good hitter. He played for Tacoma. You had like guys like Clark Wilm, Wade Belak, Rocky Thompson, all these guys running around. And I remember the people coming in with 6 other people that were 16-year-olds. My good buddies Justin Guy and B.J. Young at the time. And I remember looking back and going, you know what? Because I thought my old man was nuts having me play bantam or a junior as a first-year bantam. I thought he was nuts. But looking back, it helped because, those guys were all getting used to this hitting. I remember saying, okay, so the games are on TV. It can't be too bad then. Because we'd go up north into Fort St. John, and you didn't know what was going to happen, if the bus would be turned over or, I'm not going to exaggerate and say weapons, but you're definitely getting grabbed outside the parking lot after the odd game. And I remember saying, okay, it's all this shit's on camera. We're all good. I don't care how hard he hits me. He can't chop me over the head. So anyway, that was, and again, I'm rambling. But from there, that was it, 8th overall to Montreal. Along with 2 of my teammates, Damon Lankow went 5th, and Brian Boucher, the goalie, went 22nd. You probably came across him, Ian. And,
oh, yeah.
And that's it. I went pro, and now I do a lot of sports commentary. I have the bestseller in Canada book out about my career called Tales of a First Round Nothing.
Great name.
Which makes sense. I had my cup of coffee, and I got injured, but I did screw up my career to a point. But I always kind of looked at it tongue in cheek. It wasn't funny at the time, but I still got to live. I still play senior hockey now, so I got to play pro and got to experience all that. I think team sports are a major something that everybody should do, and to be able to, the further you go up the ranks in hockey, the further I find the team becomes more important, and your captains become so important, and you're actually learning from people until you're actually in the NHL, and guys like Mark Recchi and Shane Corson, for me, they're good on and off the ice, and they know how to handle themselves, and I think it helps you in life. And anyway.
So there's a mutual, I mean, Ian, did you play with Rex too?
Yeah, when I first got to Pittsburgh, he was there. Pittsburgh had a real good team. They had just won 2 in a row and then lost that series to the Islanders when Kevin Stevens broke his face and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rex, that team there had, as you were talking about leadership, they had, Mario was the captain, but there's, 10 other guys that could have been captains and were leaders every place else. And, it's pretty unbelievable, the group of guys that were in that locker room.
That's amazing to be able to come into that atmosphere. I've known people, I won't name teams or names, but I've known people come up into the team with lack of leadership and, that maybe don't have the biggest tradition of winning, or if they ever have, and, they might get a couple of camps out of it and go back, and I'm like, too bad. Even if it was for a glimpse that you could get there. And, I mean, Ian ends up becoming one of the captains of Pittsburgh. I mean, that's an unbelievable story in itself. But, you're coming up. And I believe, I can't remember, Ian, I looked you up for a bit. I can't remember if you were a free agent or went in the 6th round or something, but expectations when you're first starting were like, I want to make the NHL, I'm assuming. And then you go in and you've got all these leaders. I mean, it must have been an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it was wild. So I ended up getting cut, myself and a guy named Chris Ferraro. We were the last guys cut from the 94 Olympic team.
I remember.
So they cut Chris, and Chris's twin brother Peter stayed with the team and went on. And I got gassed, and Terry, I don't know if you played in Long Island and had that walk from the Nassau Coliseum across the hotel. So I got gassed, and the team left to go fly over to Norway. And I took my bag and walked across the parking lot with Chris, and we got back to the hotel, and it was before cell phones and everything. And I called back. My girlfriend, who's now my wife, was at BC. Called her, told her I was done, and from a payphone in the lobby. And Chris went up to his room, and I walked into the bar in my USA Hockey tracksuit. And the bartender was like, "Thought you guys left." I'm like, "I got gassed." And he was like, "All right, rounds on the house." So I sat there for a little while, and she drove down, picked me up, and signed with the Penguins the next day. Flew into Pitt that night, and the next morning went to practice with the Penguins, and I was sitting in between Mario and Ronnie Francis.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
just so the boys could have some fun with me, the first drill they made me go with and against Mario the whole time, which was absurd. So, yeah. So,
my God. He's probably my favorite player ever.
Oh, he's awesome. So he to make this even more absurd. So I have that practice, and then I get sent to Cleveland, which is the IHL, afterwards. But after the practice, I go to the hotel to check in, and they're like, "All right, we need a credit card for incidentals." I'm like, "I don't have a credit card." Like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "No, I got like $10 on me. I thought the team took care of everything." So they ended up spending the night. I had to call home and use my father's credit card to put it on, and then drove. I don't know how I ended up getting to Cleveland the next day for the IHL, and I stayed for the rest of that year, stayed in a roadside motel called the Comfort Inn, which cost the Cleveland Lumberjacks $10 a day to keep me in. And they, whenever we'd go on the road, I have to put all my stuff in the lobby so that the room didn't get broken into and all my stuff stolen. So that was it. And then I got called up for the playoffs that year and started playing.
Now, was that the Lumberjacks, Ian, at that time? Were they the Lumberjacks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. That was the Lumberjacks.
Was that 93, 94?
That was 93, 94. Yeah. So I got cut.
Okay.
Cut, and there was enough time that counted as my rookie year. And it was, I coming out of college and not a huge guy, and obviously the guy at that point was still the black guy. And my first game we go into Kalamazoo, and they had a guy named Scotty Gruel, and there was a 5-on-5, and go wheeling in. I'm late, and I'm going up the ice with Gruel, the 5-on-5 starting, and I hook Gruel and pull him back, and as I put the glove, right hand, boom, square in the mouth.
Oh, boy.
And that was it. That was my first fight. Yeah, that was my first fight, my first game against Scotty Gruel.
Terry, you remember your first fight or what?
No, I'm not kidding here. And by the way, Ian, that's a great start of a book right there.
Isn't it? I was
I don't
thinking
know
the
if
same
you got
thing.
one or you're thinking about it, man, but I just started throwing some words together and it worked out. And that's as good as
Yeah.
my opener. Yeah, my first fight. Okay, so I told you I went out west when I was 14. Again, this was absurd at the time. And it was absurd that I was allowed to play like no visor. No cage. I had a visor on, and I was allowed to drop my. I still look back and I'm going, and I know the game came a long way. And by the way, I did a lot of fighting. I don't think though that there should be one guy to go fight. And God bless all of them I came across. But I was just a gritty player. And the Western League then was full of them. The best players in our league. Joe McGinley, Shane Doan, Darcy Tucker, Lankow, Zdeno Chara, Eric Brewer, Surrey. Over the years, I can keep going and going. But it was more guys. Even Wade Belak was a first rounder as a D-man. There wasn't these one person to go out and grab somebody. But so, I liked fighting in the game to a point. I think 34 my first year in the A was way too many. But on any given year, I'd probably get 5 to 10 being pissed off around the net. Yeah, it was absurd. And it's all part of a big story. But when I first went out, there was, that was kind of the thing. And in Junior A, everybody had a tough guy. And anyway, there was a couple on Williams Lake. So I wasn't sure how to deal with that because I'd never thrown a hit yet. Again, I was in Pee Wee back here with no hitting. So I'm big, per se. I was 6'1", 180. But everybody, I'm in grade 9. So just put that in perspective. And this guy, and I thought, I can't name him because I forget his last name. I thought his name was Adam Scott. I could be wrong. And for the book, I couldn't track down his name, but a guy, Lenny Forstner, the two of them were their big guys. Lenny ended up playing in the I. And they both kind of grabbed, and I don't think it was just Cornell versus Williams Lake, and it was exhibition. And those were two towns, in northern BC that were within striking distance of each other, and they just didn't like each other, and that's the way rivalries go. But, I was a centerman, and the puck dropped, and I guess they'd heard that there'd been a guy from Newfoundland out there. I don't think they realized my age. At least if they did, they were bigger pussies than I thought. But, I got a cross-check in the face. And how do I deal with this? I look up, there's a line brawl. And so, I don't know how to deal with this. I haven't even been hit yet. So I join in, I grab everything I can, and my gloves, everything. I drop them again. I pick them up again. I drop them again. I don't know what to do. And finally, Forstner gets me and gives me a couple of hits. Moves on to the next guy, but I end up getting in there with this one fella. And he kicked the shit out of me pretty good. So I waited. We played them on the next Friday. Now, I also had to fit into school. I'm 14. I'm out there. I got zits all over my face. I'm nervous as hell. The part about leaving here, you're coast to coast without the globalization of the internet, right? It's not like I could relate to people. They were saying, you Newfoundlander with the rubber boots, and they thought I had a dory, and, I didn't have a color TV. It was just everything that was stereotyped Newfoundland in the 90s when, we've come a long way with the internet as nothing else, right? And also that made it harder not to communicate with my friends. It was by letter, by mail and shit. So I was real nervous, but I had to fit in. So I said, you know what? I made a decision myself. I'm going to fight him. I'm going to fight him next game, and I'm terrified to do it. But this will probably give me a little bit of status at school. At least they'll see I got balls because no one else on the team wants to fight him. And, I'll be accepted by the boys on the team. So I waited. Now, we went out for breakfast that day, and I was talking with the guys, and they were saying, we're going to pick up for you tonight, T-Bone, don't worry about it. I'm starting to get to know them. I have 2 or 3 exhibition games in. And now I'm getting to know them a little bit, and they realize I'm there. But still, guys are getting their back up because I know where I'm going to Tri-City. In Junior A, a lot of people are trying to make it so they can get a scholarship. So they're kind of upset, and they're like, he probably should be playing Bantam. He's going to knock somebody off the team that would probably get a chance at a scholarship. So I had to weave that line, too, which was a tough mental line to weave when you're that age. But anyway, so I got to the rink, and about halfway through the second, I grabbed him. I said, okay, let's go. And I poked him with my stick. He's saying, well, are you kidding me? I said, no, we're going to go fair now. So before the game, I took a file, and I filed my helmet up. I chopped up the side of my helmet. You couldn't really see it, but I know he's going to really be hitting me, so I just put the visor down under my chin and went into him like a bulldog or ram, say. And as he's punching me, he's just ripping the shit out of his knuckles. So I'm waiting, and there's blood going everywhere, and I'm sure it's not mine because I'm looking out from under my visor. I'm just total cowardly move if I was his age, but I'm looking back. So anyway, and then I say, come on in, like as we're talking, he's like, you asshole. And then as he's saying, I said, let's get tight in on me then. Come on, you can beat me strong. You don't have to hold me out because I know if he holds me out, I can't get at him. Right? I know that. I've never fought before, at least on the ice. But I know I can't get at him. So he comes in close, and from breakfast that morning, I had a bunch of hot sauce. And I took it and I had all the hot sauce over my hands, and I wiped it in his eyes. Now he can't see anything. So I'm in Quesnel now, and even though I'm getting beat up, one of the tougher guys in the league is bleeding his hands, and then I just teed off on him. He couldn't see anything, so I hit him a couple times. And I gave him an uppercut. He went straight down, and to boot, I go off, and I'm loving this. I didn't expect to beat him. I didn't expect it to work. And I know it sounds outlandish. I have witnesses. And then after the game, I lost my virginity. Boom. Like 10 birds with one stone. But yeah, just everything was taken care of. And then I go to school the next day, and I'm cool. It just changed everything. It made me not want to come home anymore and stay away and be a hockey player.
And see, for our listeners, this is great. This is exactly what I think this show is going to be about. And, these tales that Terry and Ian are telling us right now. I mean, we'll tackle the hot topics and stuff for sure. But
so I want to know about the hot sauce. How'd you get the hot sauce? Because when I was a mite, I used to hide licorice in my glove. And I'd go on the bench and I would eat the Twizzlers and chew it. And I'd go to the face-offs and I'd spit it out so that the kids would think it's blood. Never in a million years I think about putting hot sauce in my hand.
Yeah, that's great. I never heard that one. No, but yeah, the hot sauce, I just took, I had to beat this guy, and to be honest with you, that morning, I was feeling kind of antsy, and the guy came over, the waiter, and it said, any breakfast, any time. And I was I'm serious, Northern BC, it's a tough town, I nearly got in a fight with the waiter in the morning, said, any breakfast, any time, and I said, I'll have, say, an Egg McMuffin during the Renaissance, or something like that, because that was apparently, anyway, I went back to my buddies, and I don't know the exact line, but they all agreed that it was something like that. And I just took the hot sauce from them, and I asked the guy, could I take it? There was only some left. And I took it to the rink, and before we went on for the second period, I just doused it all over my hands, and I assumed they'd still be hot and sweaty.
That's fantastic.
Good stuff.
That's fantastic.
Well, I get away with that because I was 14.
Yeah.
I think in any other case, and I ended up, being accepted. It was thuggery, I know, but back then, and people may even, yeah, exactly. They might scoff at the story, but I'm telling you, it was survival. And I thought to myself long and hard, because all I knew is that I'm over here in Newfoundland, and again, no one was coming from here then. A guy named John Slaney, that was the only guy. And John went 9th overall, but no one put 2 and 2 together. John won, Newfoundland never wins. We go to the, nationals in anything other than ball hockey, curling, or rugby, maybe fast-pitch softball. We go to the nationals, and you play the host first game so they can win 10-0. Everybody gets a free hot dog, and you go home. That's what it is in Newfoundland. But Slaney's team won, and they got to go to they won the Atlantics, and they got to go to the Canadian Championship. They were one of the best 5 teams. And Slaney got noticed, and he ended up scoring the winner for Team Canada in '91, had a great pro career, AHL Hall of Fame, and about 300 NHL games. And Slane's, that was it. So he was the only guy, in 14 or 15 years. And then in '95, after everything I'm telling you, then I go 8th. So Slane's goes 9th in '91, and I go 8th, so it's nothing else. I think that we opened the door. I think because people then started to say, what the hell? And I'll never forget, after all that went down, TSN did a story. TSN's, for those that don't know, listeners, it's a sports channel in Canada. But that was it. So they did a story, and Mike Barnett, Wayne Gretzky's agent, flew to Quesnel. I'm not kidding you. He showed up at my door, and he said, I got a guy like you now. He's a year older. He's coming over to play in the IHL Radek Bank. And Peter Sikora was one of those guys. I think he ended up playing along your travels. Ian, Peter Sikora, way back in the day. Those guys would come over a year early. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, and Mike was. I remember him talking about those guys. I didn't know him yet. And the first thing my dad said to him, he said, "If you think Terry's good, you should go to Harbour Grace, Newfoundland, right now and look at Danny Cleary." I'll never forget it till the day. I of course not. But and I don't think he meant that as a slight. But Dad used to go to all the games, and to be honest with you, when I told you earlier I got scouted in the Quebec Pee Wee tournament, they wanted me to go by myself, to play with the team from out west. And my dad said, no, there's lots of good players in Newfoundland, and he took the whole team. And 3 guys went to the O. I went out there. 4 or 5 got scholarships. It was just bringing. So I do think our family had a little bit to do. Right after with Newfoundlanders getting noticed, right after me came Ryan Clough and Michael Ryder and Adam Party and Luke Adam and Teddy Purcell. Right, all those guys came shortly after. So I think it did open kind of a doorway.
Ian, speaking of what Terry's talking about here, with him going out to Western Canada, he's the first to do that, and kind of him opening a door for some of the people from Newfoundland and the Maritimes. When you came into the league, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I recall right, I mean, it was hard for American kids to make it as well. I mean, you didn't see as many American kids as you do now, for sure, right?
No, definitely not. There was some playing. Honestly, I think the 1980 Olympic team had a big impact on the guys in Boston that were playing because I'm born in 72. The guys that were born in 70, that was like the first real group of kids who out of the Boston area that played, and that'd be like Rowan Acamonte, Sean McGeckran, Teddy Crowley was an Olympian, played in Toronto a bit, in Boston a bit. Marty McGuinness. That was like the kids that we'd go to the rink and the summer team or whatever, like the tournament team they play on was a team called Lyceum, and we'd just look at that and be like, holy God, look at these guys. And then the 71s were okay, and then the 72s was my year. The 72 year was real good, and it was Keith Kachuk and then John Lilly, who played on the Olympic team and played in Anaheim. And
I know John Lilly played in Long Beach.
Yep. Was a beauty. And
I remember him out there,
and
I met him through people, through a few friends or good friends. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, but that was it. So, but I was lucky though because the Penguins had Kevin Stevens was from Boston, played at BC. Peter Taglianetti was a Boston kid, played at Providence College. There was Greg Brown and Dougie Brown. Dougie was there at the time. Greg ended up coming the next year.
Craig Patrick's American too, right?
Yeah, he's from Needham, and he was So Craig was great, and then we also had, when I got drafted, it was Bob Johnson was in the draft, and we had
Badger Bob.
But yeah, exactly, and then Pierre McGuire had played at St. Lawrence, so he knew some of the Boston guys. So he was actually
he says hello, by
Boston
the way.
For Penguins. No,
I told him we were doing this, and he said, "Oh, you're gonna have fun with Ian." So.
Yeah, so he was good. He but he was the Boston scout, and then it was from there. There was a bunch of Boston kids that came out over the next few years. That I honestly think it all went back to the impact of the guys from the Boston area that were on the '80 Olympic team. Though, to tell you the truth.
Hey, you bring up Tony Amonte there, Ian, and I don't know how much you can divulge on the podcast here, but maybe tell Terry and the listeners about his coaching style at Thayer Academy.
Tony's pretty hardcore. He most of the prep school coaches are in coat and tie and dressed up and just what you think like a prep school that costs quite a bit of money to go to. And Tony, you see Tony, and Tony's got a baseball hat on, pre-flap visor, hoodie, and just is screaming and yelling and just he just treats them like they're prep school kids, high school kids, whatever. He produces kids. They all go on. He's got more kids that go to college than probably most prep schools around. But man, does he just scream and yell, dropping F-bombs here, F-bombs there. And the rinks that you play in, they get, the rink that Thayer plays in has a balcony that's right across. And I'm not kidding you. Like that's where my kid plays at that rink. And you can hear the parents talking if in between whistles about what's going on. And Tony is just letting them have it. And I've got a buddy. He's got two kids there, and this kid he played at Northeastern and UNH, and he said, "How was so and so's year?" He's like, he played really well. It was incredible because Tony would just scream at him. So he asked him after the season, "That was great. It was a good year you developed." And he looked at his dad and goes, "I'm just so terrified of Tony. I don't know what to do." So Tony's good though.
Yeah, he's doing all right there. I hear you guys.
Yeah, totally. But and one thing you said, Ian, that often we wonder sometimes how much of an impact you have as a player or whatever on kids coming up. Because I always remember just being in awe of the hockey players, for example, in my area. But look at, say you just said we're the Miracle on Ice, if you want to call it that. The impact that had for people from your area when you were younger. And, it's like now people, if they look at Austin Matthews, you have to make that connection that, the team went to Phoenix and 18 years later, a great hockey player comes out, not only him, there's all kinds of people now coming out of Phoenix, and teams like Team Austria internationally. Team Austria and Switzerland were never really much. But then, their programs improve. There's more and more great hockey players going over to play. The people grow up watching those hockey players and being taught by them. And sure enough, 20 years later, there's all kinds of people coming out of there. I love it. It's an obvious example of the evolution of the game that we often don't really put together,
Yeah. And, both of you guys coach. I don't know if you had established that off air before we got on, but both of you guys are currently coaching. I guess I'll start with you, Ian. What's your take just right now on what the mentality or the approach or the excitement around the game is amongst these kids? Is it like when you grew up? I mean, how's it different? How's it similar?
So the kids that I skate with, the youngest would be born in 2005, so they'd be 6th and 7th graders. Mm-hmm. And then I got some older kids that are playing in college. But just to be honest, I had my hip replaced 10 weeks ago, so I haven't been on the ice much with anybody. So I'm going to Sunday is going to be my first day on the ice with the older kids. But the kids that are playing in the prep schools, I can really relate to what they're doing because they played youth hockey in the same youth hockey league that I played in. It was the Metro League then, now it's the EHF, and they played in that. And then from there, they go to the prep schools, and you have your buddies that all break off and go to the prep schools and play. And then everybody that plays in the prep school, in all honesty, you've got a handful of kids on each team every year. That say 3 kids that are going D1. And then when I was playing, it was, 5 kids would go D1. And then there's a couple kids that will go play junior to get looked at later. And then the rest of them usually all go on and play Division III. So, most of those kids I can relate with pretty well. They've all had good coaching. They've all had, like you were saying, those guys that are born in 1970, they've all come back now and have their kids playing and they're coaching. So they've got really good coaches. So McGeckran is coaching one of the prep schools, and Tony's coaching another. A kid named Jeremiah McCarthy's coaching another one. Yeah, Sean McCann, I don't know if you know him. He's coaching another. Teddy Donato's brother, Danny, coaches at one, and Danny played hockey at BU and then ended up played actually baseball and hockey at BU. So those guys are all in one league. So those are all schools that everybody's looking at, and all those kids go there and they play and they get good coaching, and they're getting they're going to good schools, and the majority of them, they get the pressure on to get good grades. So even if they can't go D1 and get money, most of them go to a good NESCAC school, and those schools are all great academically, and it's great for them.
The thing I think
it all falls.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say, it's the same thing that there's guys that come out and play. So, like Mike Greer, I coach the 04s for the organization that I'm in. Greer's, he coaches the 03s. And
he's over at my alma mater now too, right? St. Sib's?
He's at Sebby's, yeah. Yep. Sebby's has some good kids. Yes, so there's kids everywhere. Like if you went down the line, they're all guys that played Division I at least are coaching these teams. So the kids are getting good coaches, and my biggest thing with the kids is that I think it's fine, like teaching them how to play and all that kind of stuff. But I think as far as some of the practices and the drills and what they've got going on, it's so structured and so over-structured that the kids don't get to think at all. They all just, they almost turn into mini robots. And they, at least here, I have no idea there are other places, but they get over-coached and almost over-skilled where they can, it's great that they can come down and make, 4 head fakes on a tire and go around and put it off the crossbar. But what happens when the guy actually is moving with them? Can he fend him out? Does he know any idea how to position himself? Does he know how to protect the puck? Does he know anything? So my teams that I coach, and the older guys that we do their off-season stuff with them, we do a ton of small area games. And Terry, like after pros practices, you work on shooting, and it's not normal shooting. You're shooting off, bad passes. You're shooting off of pucks in your feet. You're one-timing everything and shooting through lanes. And that's what I try to do with everybody. That's like the skill stuff that I do with them. And kids love it. It transfers into a game. And then we play all sorts of little games that I know the kids love. And all you have to do is say losing team picks with the puck, and then the intensity picks up instantly. So
I hear you. Terry, you find the same way, though, that, it seems at times the fun of the game is kind of void these days.
Well, look, for sure. I agree with everything Ian said, so I guess to elaborate on that, I find, and that couldn't be said better, like go around 4 tires, come in, spin off the bar. There's definitely more skill out there. But, your hockey IQ, it's different. That's not necessarily skill. it's going out and knowing what to do and when to do it. And I think when you get into regular games, that weeds itself out. But more kids, now I won't say just strictly being taught that. I think, at least around here, there's pros and cons. It's become not elitist, but getting there. It costs a lot of money to play hockey. For example, when I was even in pro, Montreal would give us money to go wherever we wanted in the summer and train. So I picked Paul Vincent's camp there down around Cape Cod a couple times.
Yep.
And that was as a pro, right? And I went down there and it was great. We worked on a lot. It was structured. It was awesome. I have nothing good to say. I wouldn't have gone back multiple times. But now it's like everybody in minor hockey, the parents, the kids that are successful might have a lot of money to do that. And like parents down the road will go, yeah, well, we're going to New Hampshire next week. Jesus, why are you flying to New Hampshire? Well, there's this program, and, Bobby's going to get faster, and, apparently they're going to make his shot 90 miles an hour. And I'm going, but, not necessarily the answer isn't throwing 10 grand. Not that I don't love New Hampshire hockey. I'm saying, now I think there's a lot more, not always money, but it's driving it a little more around here. And a lot of the kids, for example, at least half the guys I mentioned from Newfoundland would never be there if it was an elitist sport. They wouldn't be able to. Yeah. Now, we've got programs in place here to help young kids that need it because, my kid played midget AAA last year, Tyson. And Tyson, it's $8,000 just to join. Just at the beginning of the year, it's $8,000. And it takes care of a lot now. They're in a league, and they travel all over Newfoundland. They go to 2 trips to Halifax at least. And there's all kinds of scouts. I can't say it's not worth it, but, it wasn't what I paid. And I always seem to be outplaying. Now, I guess, with the distractions of social media, like I said, the Internet's great in one way. But in the other, in all that downtime, I was out shooting it off the back of the house or something. And you might think, well, you're just out there by yourself. But you're always getting better. There was more street hockey games. There was more pickup games. We skated on the pond more. And I don't care what anybody says. That's practice. And that is using your hockey IQ. You get all your buddies out there. And I might not be going around 10 tires and being an absolute dangler, but I'm learning where to go and when to go there, and I'm doing it on the street. I'm doing it in my backyard. I'm doing it everywhere. I love the game. That's what I'm doing. And Mom and Dad didn't have to spend all kinds of money for me to do that. And not saying that parents that got it shouldn't help, and, I'm one of them. I'm rich. I just mean I support Tyson that way. Penny Lane, my daughter's 7. She's the same thing. If she wants that in soccer, I'll try to put her in more programs I can. But there is a point, I think, where you're over-coached and you become a robot.
Yeah.
And that I find a little bit dangerous. And that, hockey is an evolution, and we're learning now. We're slowly learning the pros and cons of all the fights and the hits and the skill and the lack of goals or whatever your opinion might be. We're always moving in a direction. I don't think hockey's in any bad place. People exaggerate. I think it's great. The registration around here has never been higher. I look around North America, more people have an idea. When I played in Tri-City, Washington, it was still a cult kind of thing. Like, people came to Tri-City games to see what's going on. Now you go back and, people really know about hockey, and what's Carey Price's stats this year, played in Tri-City or whatever. The knowledge of the game is going through the roof. Austin Matthews wouldn't be playing hockey if he was 20 years younger, and he's one of the best players in the world. I just mean there's pros and cons, and I think if we open it to more kids, or at least if kids on the low end of the totem pole financially can maybe get a little bit more help, and we don't over-strategize it. But that's why, Ian, it's important, not to ramble, but the last thing I'll say, it's important for guys like you and me that have been there to go back into it, because most of these kids I mentioned around here are coached by fools. Right? And I'm not just talking Newfoundland. I go to Toronto, I do some work, all over Eastern Canada. And, you see these kids coming out that and they want the captain, and they just score goals, and they might be bratty, and they might be, and they're not, you can tell they're not coached off the ice, right, or on the ice. And that's why I encourage every ex-player. I don't have the time. I'm still playing to take a team all year, but I do hockey schools, and I do consulting, and that might even be get a kid with the right billet. People leave at 16. I'm like, Joe, Jimmy's leaving, and you got to make sure you got a good billet, because that could go to Alri too in a hurry. So anyway, that's my opinion.
One of the things you were just saying there was the street hockey and playing on a pond, and everything's so structured now. If you're playing street hockey, you're playing on a pond. You can't just shoot it out. You can't just fire it because you lose the puck in the snow or the ball goes in the grass. So everything you're doing, just that, you're learning how to protect the puck. You're learning how to think.
That's
you're learning how to create space and pull it back. And, now we're
But they don't do that, guys. They just play video games now. That's the problem. I feel like
I know, but I mean, even if they do play, though, there's, they get on the mini rinks and they have, bumpers out there where they can use it, to pass it and bank it. And I think that playing ball hockey is a huge, huge reason, or is unbelievably helpful for kids to learn how to protect the puck and to try to open up lanes, like open up a guy's feet to pass it through. And I know it seems like it should be so simple and obvious, but when you can use the boards when you're in panic and you have every parent and every coach screaming at you, get it out, and they just turn and rifle off the boards. Like, I don't think I ever dumped a puck until I turned pro, and I'm being dead serious. When I was in high school, if you dumped the puck in, you didn't play. And God forbid if you dumped the puck in on the power play. If you ever dumped the puck in on the power play, you'd never go out on the power play again.
By the way, too, Ian, did you see that USA Hockey? I just saw it in the Globe recently. You saw that, right? 14 and under, they're not going to be allowed to ice in USA Hockey anymore, which I think is great.
PK, I saw that. I'm sure to come across.
Yeah,
I think that might even. Aren't they talking about bringing that into the NHL at some point?
They're talking about doing it, and I've heard about it in preseason games. Not this year.
Well, they're taking icing off the power play soon. I know that. That's going to come soon.
It's got to be moving up. It's got to be moving up from our level. So, because my kid, he's the U14, so he's the cut of who can ice it and who can't. So, I mean, I just
like you said, it's an evolution, and if nothing else, I'm proud of the era I played in, but I would also be lying to you if I said that I don't look at this generation and be absolutely blown away with some of the skill. Now, I'll get in, we also didn't have these one pieces. Like in the Western League in the 90s, I didn't know what a toe drag was. And these guys now are coming along at the era of the speed, and argue for or against it without that red line and obstructions. They're flying out there, and their moves have never been better. So a lot of people say it's not exciting to watch, but I'm like, I think it's really exciting. But there are still a lot of things that we got to change, and that's going to be always happening. We're never going to have the perfect game. And, I think right now it's in a decent spot if you compare it to the other sports and you compare it to other eras.
I just hope the grassroots level, continues with guys like you guys there, helping out. I think that's a great point that you make, Terry, that, anyone that played the game should try and give back and coach at the grassroots level. Listen, guys, we're cutting it tight on time here, and I'll have to tell my how I got started in journalism story in the next episode. But it's a good one. It involves Michel Goulet and Glenn Anderson, so I'll leave it at that. So it's a good one.
Did you have a mustache too?
Hey, buddy. I think there's a story in Ottawa that Ian's involved in that we could tell someday too. Well, maybe not, but
there's a couple up there.
Yeah, we had a good time up there in 2008. Hey, listen, guys, this is going to be great. I mean, I'm really excited to have you on here on Murphy's Hockey Law and CLNS Media. We're gonna this will be the type of show and podcast we're gonna have where I want to get you guys stories. I want to get your insight on the game, and then as the season kicks in, we'll start to talk about some hot topics around the NHL as well. One thing I want to get into, if he's not signed by next week, I mean, one of the big stories down here in Boston is their high scorer David Pastrnak. He's a restricted free agent, not signed. And something I want to get into with you guys, get your take, is the second contracts that players are getting nowadays in the NHL. Obviously much different than when you played. So we'll get into that next week. Guys, any final words?
You just gave us homework, Murph.
Yeah, there you go. That's your homework.
Yeah, that's how he did it. It's like the disguised backstage. By the way, guys, I'm going to hang up. You guys go do your homework. We'll talk soon.
Then do it over a couple pints of Guinness for me, all right?
All right.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing that tonight. Check my Instagram tonight. I'm going down with the old man and tell old hockey stories.
Well, I think he and I are going to have to come up for some pints in St. John's at some point and record a podcast there. That's a goal for me, for sure. Hey, listen, guys, I appreciate you joining the show, and I appreciate you being on this podcast for sure. We will talk to you next week. That's Ian Moran, Terry Ryan, I'm Jimmy Murphy. This has been the debut episode of Murphy's Hockey Law on CLNS Media. We'll see you next week.
And I say, wait, hey, hey, it's just an ordinary day, and it's all your state of mind. At the end of the day, you just got to say it's alright.